For Creamer Media's Polity, I'm Motshekga. Political analyst Motshekga discusses the ANC's leadership in Gauteng ahead of South Africa's 2014 elections. The ANC in Gauteng seems to be out of step with the ANC national leadership in how it wishes to approach the 2014 elections. What are the main sources of tension?
Well, the first thing to do is to distinguish between national and provincial dynamics. And remember that in 2009, the only province in which the ANC gained support was KwaZulu-Natal. In every other province, it lost support. Now, the Democratic Alliance has been arguing that Gauteng is there for the taking, either by the Democratic Alliance itself, which is not going to happen in 2014, or by a coalition of opposition parties in Gauteng, which they seem to think is possible in 2014. What I find amusing, listening to what the ANC in Gauteng is saying, it seems the Democratic Alliance has convinced the ANC in Gauteng that indeed it is in danger, if not in 2014, but sometime in future, of losing Gauteng. So that's the first reason. Secondly, if you look at the middle class, the middle class is overstretched when it comes to issues such as debt, and therefore e-tolling could not have come at a worse time. So when the middle class is complaining about e-tolling, it is not really e-tolling they're talking about. They're talking about their economic circumstances and how those economic circumstances have become more difficult for them as a middle class. So when Gauteng is calling on former President Thabo Mbeki to intervene by participating in the Gauteng ANC's campaign in this province, it is in recognition of the fact that the middle class, black and white, in this province is unhappy about its economic conditions and how, to some extent, those economic conditions are linked to ANC policy decisions.
Do you think the ANC's attempt to rope in former President Thabo Mbeki ahead of the 2014 elections will help recapture Gauteng's middle-class voters for the party?
Well, it's a risk. I'm not even sure it's worth the risk. Because if you listen to the Democratic Alliance and what it is saying on issues such as black economic empowerment, at best, the DA is ambivalent or ambiguous. At worst, they come across as being dishonest and insincere. And therefore, the question is, when members of the black middle class, the ANC is trying to keep within its fold, listen to what the DA is saying about issues such as BEE, are they going to feel they will be safe under a DA government in Gauteng or not? That's the question the ANC must answer. If the ANC's assessment is that the black middle class will take its chances with the DA or a coalition of opposition parties, maybe they are correct in inviting President Thabo Mbeki to intervene in Gauteng. On the other hand, by calling on former President Thabo Mbeki to campaign with them in Gauteng, effectively, they are passing a vote of no confidence against the president of the party, Jacob Zuma. And another question, therefore, that will arise is, should I vote for this party when it does not even have confidence in its own leader, President Jacob Zuma? So this actually could backfire by foregrounding the perceived weaknesses of the president.
In your column, you suggest that having President Jacob Zuma as a presidential candidate could be costly for the ANC in Gauteng and in some other provinces. Why do you say this?
Well, I do not suggest that. I suggest that there is growing concern within the party about whether President Jacob Zuma should be the face of the ANC. In my view, the ANC has no option but to retain President Jacob Zuma as its presidential candidate in accordance with the outcome of the Mangaung conference. So I suspect the decision by Gauteng to invite Thabo Mbeki to be part of its campaign is more about internal ANC politics and battles than it is about the election itself.
You speak of the kamikaze option, where you suggest that it would be political suicide for anybody to try and replace President Zuma as the ANC's presidential candidate. Why do you say this?
Well, anyone, first of all, who tries to table the idea of an alternative candidate in a formal meeting of the ANC will be guillotined. There's no doubt about it. So it would be a risk first at that level. Secondly, it would be a risk in the sense that it would divide the party quite badly. And that is why I think those who are saying President Jacob Zuma is a danger when it comes to him being the face of the ANC campaign might have a plan B. A plan B itself that I don't think will win sufficient support in the ANC. And that plan B being to wait for the outcome of the election. And if the ANC loses significant support, then blame that loss of support on the president and then argue that he should not be the ANC's nominee for head of state in 2014. But as I said, even that plan B is unlikely to win sufficient support.
Gauteng is a key election battleground ahead of the 2014 elections. Do you think the DA, the leading opposition party in the province, will be able to capitalize on the problems in the ANC and make significant gains at the ballot box?
Well, let's start with why it is a key significant battleground. The DA is already in control of the Western Cape. If they managed to win Gauteng effectively, they would be running the country without winning the national election. That is what is at stake here. But the DA alone is not going to be able to defeat the ANC in Gauteng in 2014. The swing that has to be achieved which is just too much. So the DA alone cannot do it. And that is why you see a change in their messaging. At first, the DA was giving the impression it could take Gauteng on its own, but it later changed that message to say that a coalition of opposition parties might take Gauteng. Now, who are those opposition parties? I think people are looking at the DA, the EFF, Ahang, even COPE. But the EFF is strongly opposed to the idea of being part of a coalition with the DA. Well, practical politics sometimes suggest that you may have to go into a coalition with a party you did not consider as an ally. So depending on the outcome and depending on opportunities the outcome might present to the economic freedom fighters, they might find themselves being part of a coalition with the DA.
That was Aubrey Motshekga discussing Gauteng as a key political battleground ahead of South Africa's 2014 elections.